The train's whistle pierced through Lysandra's sobs as she pressed her face against the cold metal rail. Her designer dress torn and bloodied from running through the industrial district. The 1147 freight train would end everything: the shame, the betrayal, the crushing weight of discovering her fiancé's in bed with her sister just hours before their wedding. "Step back." The voice cut through her despair like lightning. Strong hands pulled her away from the tracks just as the locomotive thundered past, its wind whipping her auburn hair across her tear-streaked face. She spun around to find piercing, amber eyes staring at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The stranger was tall, rugged, with calloused hands that still gripped her shoulders protectively. His dark hair was disheveled, his clothes simple, but clean, a stark contrast to the world of wealth and privilege she'd just fled. "Let me go," she screamed, pounding her fists against his chest. "You don't understand. I have nothing left." "I understand more than you think," he said quietly, his voice carrying an unexpected gentleness. "I'm Kairos, and you're not jumping on my watch." Something in his tone made her look up. There was pain in those amber depths, a recognition of suffering that mirrored her own. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." "'Cause 3 years ago, I stood on these same tracks," he said, releasing her shoulders but staying close. "No one was there to stop me." Lysandra's anger crumbled into fresh tears. "My wedding was supposed to be today. I caught them together, Dimitri and my sister Celeste. Everyone knew. Everyone was laughing behind my back." Kairos pulled off his leather jacket and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. "Then they're fools. Anyone who would betray someone like you doesn't deserve to breathe the same air." The raw honesty in his words made her look at him again. Really look. There's something untamed about him, dangerous yet protective. "Who are you? What were you doing here?" "I worked the night shift at the rail yard," he said, gesturing toward the industrial complex behind them. "Been walking these tracks for 3 years every night, making sure no one else makes the mistake I almost did." "What stopped you?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "A stray dog, mangy thing, half-starved. But she looked at me like I was worth something. Made me realize that sometimes the things worth living for find you when you least expect them." Lysandra felt something shift inside her chest, a tiny spark of warmth in the Arctic wasteland of her heart. "I don't even know your last name." "Kairos Ravencroft." He held out his hand. "And you are Lysandra Ashworth." She took his hand, surprised by the calluses, the strength, the way her skin tingled at the contact. "I should go. My family will be looking for me, will they?" His question was soft, but pointed. "The same family that betrayed you?" The truth hit her like a physical blow. She had nowhere to go. The penthouse apartment was in Dimitri's name. Her trust fund was controlled by her father, who'd probably already disowned her for the scandal. Her friends were all part of the same social circle that had watched her humiliation unfold. "I have nothing," she whispered. "You have yourself," Kairos said firmly. "And if you'll let me, you'll have someone who promises you'll never cry alone again." The train whistle echoed in the distance, but this time it sounded like a beginning rather than an ending. Kairos led her to a small diner 3 blocks from the rail yard, its neon sign flickering against the pre-dawn sky. The place was nearly empty except for a few shift workers grabbing coffee before heading home. Lysandra felt exposed under the fluorescent lights, acutely aware of her torn wedding dress and mascara-streaked face. "2 coffees and whatever breakfast you've got," Kairos told the waitress, sliding into the booth across from Lysandra. He pushed a handful of napkins toward her. "Take your time." She cleaned her face as best she could, her hands shaking. "Must look like a disaster. You look like someone who's been through hell," he said simply. "But you're still here. It takes courage." "Courage." She laughed bitterly. "I was about to, but you didn't." His amber eyes held hers steadily. "That's what matters now." The waitress brought their coffee and plates of eggs, bacon, and toast. Lysandra stared at the food, her stomach churning. "I don't think I can eat." "When's the last time you ate?" Kairos asked, already cutting his toast into small pieces and pushing them toward her. "Yesterday morning, I think. I was too nervous about the wedding to eat." The word wedding came out as a strangled sob. "And you need to eat," he said gently. Take small bites. Don't think about anything else. There was something about his quiet authority that made her obey. Toast was dry, but she forced it. Down, gradually, her body began to respond to the nourishment, and she found herself eating more. Tell me about your work, she said, desperate to focus on anything but her own disaster. I'm a supervisor at the rail yard. Started as a loader 5 years ago. He paused, studying her face. You probably think it's beneath someone like you? Someone like me? She looked down at her ruined designer dress. I don't even know who I am anymore. Spent my whole life being who everyone expected me to be. The perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée, the perfect society princess. And what did you want to be? The question caught her off guard. I don't know. I studied art history, but father said it was impractical. I loved painting, but mother said it was just a hobby. I wanted to travel, but Dimitri said wives belong at home. Dimitri sounds like an ass. Despite everything, Lysandra felt her lips twitch. He was, God, how did I not see it? Because you loved him, Kairos said quietly. Love makes us blind to things we don't want to see. Did you love someone? The reason you were on those tracks? His jaw tightened. Her name was Vera. We were together for 2 years. I thought she was the one. Then I found out she was using me to get information about shipping schedules for her real boyfriend, a guy who was running drugs through the rail yard. She betrayed you, completely. I lost my job, got arrested, spent 6 months in jail before they realized I was innocent. When I got out, I had nothing. No job, no money, no trust in anyone. That's when I ended up on the tracks. Lysandra reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me something important. The only person you can really count on is yourself. But maybe, he turned his hand over, palm up, and intertwined their fingers. Maybe 2 people who've been broken can help each other heal. The touch sent electricity through her entire body. She'd never felt anything like it with Dimitri, this raw, honest connection that seemed to bypass her brain and speak directly to her soul. I don't have anywhere to go, she admitted. My family will cut me off. Everything I own is tied to Dimitri or my father. I have a small apartment above the auto shop on 5th Street. It's not much, but it's clean and safe. You can stay there until you figure things out. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Besides, I made you a promise. You'll never cry alone again. Kairos's apartment was a revelation. Unlike the sterile perfection of the world she'd known, it was warm and lived in. Books lined makeshift shelves and canvases covered in vibrant paintings leaned against the walls. The furniture was mismatched but comfortable, and everything spoke of a man who'd built a life from nothing. You painted these? Sandra moved toward. A canvas depicting the rail yard at sunset, the industrial landscape somehow transformed into something beautiful and haunting. Painting helps me think, he said, setting down her small overnight bagel she'd managed to grab from her car. I know it's not professional quality. These are extraordinary. She turned to face him, genuine awe in her voice. You have real talent, Kairos. This one. She gestured to a portrait of an old man sitting by a window. It's like you captured his entire life story in his eyes. That's Murphy, from the diner. He's been coming in for breakfast every day for 20 years since his wife died. Kairos moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of paint and something uniquely him. I've been thinking about taking some classes, maybe seeing if I could sell a few pieces. You should. You absolutely should. She looked around at the collection of paintings, seeing them with new eyes. These aren't just good, they're exceptional. You have a gift. So do you. He nodded toward a half-finished canvas on an easel. I saw how you looked at the brushwork. The way you understood the technique. You paint too. I used to, before life got in the way. She touched the canvas lightly, remembering the feel of a brush in her hands. The satisfaction of creating something beautiful from nothing. There's a spare easel in the closet, he said quietly. And plenty of supplies. Feel free to use whatever you need. The gesture was so simple, yet it felt like the most precious gift she'd ever received. In her world, everything came with strings attached, conditions, expectations. Here was this man she'd known for hours, offering her something purely because He thought it might bring her joy. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked, the question that had been burning in her chest since he'd pulled her from the tracks. "Because kindness is free," he said, moving to the small kitchen. "And because you remind me of myself 3 years ago. Lost, broken, convinced the world was ending. But you survived. I did more than survive. I learned to live again." He turned to face her, his amber eyes serious. "I want to help you do the same." That night, Lysandra lay on his couch. He'd insisted she take the bed while he slept on the floor, staring at the ceiling and listening to the distant sound of trains. For the first time in years, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. She woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Kairos moving quietly around the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the windows, and she could hear the city waking. Up outside. "Good morning," he said, handing her a mug. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." It was true. Despite everything, she'd slept deeply, dreamlessly.
House.
"What time is it?" 7. "I need to be at work by 8, but I wanted to make sure you were okay first." "I'm fine." "Really?" She pulled his leather jacket, which she'd slept in tighter around her shoulders. "What should I do today?" "Whatever you want." "You're free, Lysandra. Maybe for the first time in your life, you're completely free." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Free. She'd never been free before. There had always been expectations, obligations, people to please. "I think I'd like to paint," she said suddenly. Kairos's face lit up. "Then paint. I'll see you tonight." He kissed her forehead gently. Gesture so tender it made her heart skip, and then he was gone, leaving her alone with canvases and possibilities. For the first time in her life, Lysandra painted without permission, without critique, without the weight of others' expectations. She lost herself in color and movement, her brush dancing across the canvas with an urgency she'd never felt before. By the time Kairos returned that evening, she'd completed 2 paintings, one of the sunrise through his windows, another of her own hands breaking free from golden chains. "These are incredible," he breathed, studying the canvases with an intensity that made her cheeks flush. "You weren't just good before, you were holding yourself back." "I never painted what I felt," she admitted. "Only what was appropriate, what would look good in the gallery at charity events. And now I paint what's in my heart." She looked at him, this man who'd somehow unlocked something in her she'd forgotten existed. "I've been thinking about what you said, about being free." Kairos set down his work bag and moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "And I've spent my whole life being afraid. Afraid of disappointing people, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being myself." Took a step toward him, "But I'm not afraid anymore. Not of this." She reached up and touched his face, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. He caught her hand, his thumb brushing across her palm. "Lysandra," he said quietly, "you've been through hell. You don't have to. I'm not doing this because I'm broken," she interrupted. "I'm doing this because for the first time in my life, I know what I want, and I want you." He studied her face for a long moment, searching for any sign of doubt. Finding none, he pulled her closer, his other hand tangling in her hair. "I've wanted you since the moment I saw you," he admitted. "Not just physically, but all of you. Your strength, your pain, your incredible heart." When his lips met hers, it was like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. This wasn't the polite, controlled kisses she'd shared with Dimitri. This was fire and passion and truth, 2 broken souls finding completion in each other. They made love on the floor of his studio, surrounded by their paintings, with the sound of trains in the distance and the city lights painting patterns on their skin. Lysandra had never felt anything like it, the way he worshipped her body with his hands. The way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Afterward, they lay entwined, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," he replied, his arms tightening around her. "I think I've been waiting my whole life for you." "What happens now?" she asked. "My family will never accept you. They'll try to destroy you." "Let them try," he said fiercely. "I've been destroyed before. I survived, and now I have something worth fighting for. They have money, power, influence, and I have you."
Ow.
That's all I need. But even as they held each other, Lysandra knew the real battle was just beginning. Her family wouldn't let her go easily, and Dimitri's pride would demand revenge. The fairy tale was about to meet the harsh reality of the world she'd been born into. 3 days later, they came for her. The black sedan pulled up outside the auto shop at exactly 3 p.m., its tinted windows reflecting the afternoon sun like dark mirrors. Lysandra watched from the apartment window as 2 men in expensive suits emerged. Followed by her father, Octavius Ashworth, his silver hair gleaming and his face set in the cold mask she knew meant business. "They found me," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. Cares appeared beside her, his hand warm on her shoulder. "We knew they would eventually. My father doesn't make social calls. He's here to make a deal or deliver an ultimatum. Then let's go down." And hear what he has to say? But Lysandra caught his arm. "You don't understand. My father destroys people who cross him. Could have you arrested on false charges, fired, blacklisted from every job in the city." "He can try," Kairos said, his amber eyes hardening. "I won't let him take you." They descended the narrow staircase together, Lysandra's heart pounding with each step. The auto shop owner, Jericho, looked nervous as he gestured toward the back office where the men were waiting. Octavius Ashworth sat behind the desk like he owned the place, his bodyguards flanking him like statues. He was an imposing man in his 60s, with steel-gray eyes and a mouth that rarely smiled except when delivering bad news. "Lysandra," he said without preamble, "you look ... different." She did look different. 3 weeks of painting, sleeping well, and eating regular meals had put color back in her cheeks. Her hair was loose around her shoulders instead of perfectly coiffed. She wore jeans and a paint-stained shirt instead of designer clothing. "Father," she replied coolly, "I didn't expect to see you here. I'm sure you didn't." Ah. His gaze shifted. 2 Kairos, assessing him like a predator sizing up prey. "And you must be the rail worker who's been harboring my daughter." "I'm Kairos Ravencroft," he said, stepping slightly in front of Lysandra. "And I haven't been harboring anyone. Lysandra is here by choice." "Choice." Octavius smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "How refreshing, Lysandra. We need to discuss your future, privately. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front." "Of Kairos? Very well." Her father leaned back in his chair. "Dimitri is willing to overlook your little tantrum. The wedding can be rescheduled for next month. All is forgiven." "Forgiven?" Lysandra's voice rose. "He was sleeping with my sister." A momentary lapse in judgment. "Men have needs, Lysandra. Surely you're mature enough to understand that." Kairos took a step forward, his fists clenched. "You're talking about her like she's property. In my world, Mr. Ravencroft, she is." Octavius's voice was ice. "Lysandra is the sole heir to the Ashworth fortune. Her marriage to Dimitri will unite 2 of the most powerful families in the city. A little romantic inconvenience is hardly worth destroying something so valuable." "I won't marry him," Lysandra said firmly. "I won't go back to that life." "You don't have a choice, my dear. Your trust fund, your inheritance, your very identity, it all depends on fulfilling your obligations to this family." He gestured to one of his bodyguards, who placed a manila folder on the desk. "Open it." With shaking hands, Lysandra opened the folder. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of her and Kairos at the diner, walking hand in hand through the city, kissing on his fire escape. And underneath, documents that made her blood run cold. "These are fabricated," she whispered. "Are they? Tax evasion, embezzlement, salt charge. It's amazing what a thorough investigation can uncover about someone's past." Octavius's smile was razor-sharp. "Mr. Ravencroft has quite the criminal history, doesn't he?" "Those are lies," Kairos said, but Lysandra could see the fear in his eyes. He knew as well as she did that truth was irrelevant when facing the Ashworth family's resources. "Truth is subjective, young man. What matters is what can be proven in court. I have very expensive lawyers. What do you want?" Lysandra asked, though she already knew. "Come home, marry Dimitri. Live the life you were born to live. And Mr. Ravencroft keeps his job, his freedom, and his life. And if I refuse, then by tomorrow, your lover will be in jail, his life destroyed, and you'll be cut off from everything you've ever known, with no resources to help him. The trap was perfect, brutal, and absolutely like her father. Lysandra felt the walls closing. In the freedom she'd tasted slipping away like sand through her fingers. I need time to think, she said. You have until tomorrow morning. I'll be expecting your answer. That night, Lysandra sat on the fire escape outside Kairos's apartment. Staring at the city lights and trying to find a way out of an impossible situation, the manila folder lay open beside her, its contents a stark reminder of her father's power and ruthlessness. You're thinking about going back to him? Kairos said quietly, settling beside her on the metal grating. I'm thinking about protecting you. She looked at him, memorizing every line of his face. You don't deserve to be destroyed because of me. That's not your choice to make, isn't it? You saved my life, Kairos. Now I have to save yours. He took her hands, his calloused fingers warm against her skin. Do you remember what I told you the first night we met? That the only person you can really count on is yourself? Yes, I was wrong. Yes. Sometimes two people who've been broken can count on each other. But that only works if we face things together. You don't understand the kind of power my father has. He can destroy anyone who gets in his way. Then maybe it's time someone stood up to him. Lysandra stared at him. What do you mean? Maybe we don't run, maybe we fight. With what? We have nothing, no money, no connections, no power. We have the truth, we have each other. That's more than your father has. For a moment, hope flickered in her chest. Then reality crashed back down. Kairos, this isn't a fairy tale. Good doesn't always triumph over evil. Sometimes the dragon wins. Maybe. But at least we'll go down fighting. She kissed him then, desperately trying to memorize the taste of his lips, the feel of his arms around her. Because she'd already made her decision, she would go back to her father, marry Dmitri, and live the life she'd been born to live. It was the only way to protect the man she loved. But as dawn broke over the city, Lysandra discovered that Kairos had made a decision of his own. She woke to find him gone, along with the manila folder and a note on the kitchen table. Trust me, I love you, Kay. Panic seized her as she realized what he meant to do. He was going to confront her father, probably with some naive idea that he could reason with him or expose his crimes. It would be suicide. She dressed quickly and ran to the Ashworth building, her heart pounding as she imagined Kairos walking into a trap. The security guards knew her, of course. She rode the elevator to the 52nd floor with growing dread. But when she burst into her father's office, she found something she'd never expected. Kairos sat across from her father's desk, perfectly calm, while Octavius Ashworth looked like he'd seen a ghost. Between them lay not just the manila folder, but dozens of other documents, financial records, correspondence, photographs. Hello, Lysandra, Kairos said, standing as she entered. Perfect timing. What's going on? She demanded. Your boyfriend, her father said through gritted teeth, has been very busy. I told you I'd been destroyed before, Kairos said to Lysandra. What I didn't tell you was that I learned from it. I've been investigating your father's business practices for 2 years, ever since I got out of jail. Every illegal deal, every bribe, every time he destroyed someone who crossed him, I documented it all. You were investigating my father? Lysandra felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. I was investigating the man who had me falsely imprisoned. Your father owned the judge who sentenced me, paid off the prosecutor who built the case against me. He destroyed my life to protect his drug-running operation. That's impossible. Father would never look at the evidence, Lysandra. Kairos gestured to the papers spread across the desk. Banking records, recorded conversations, photographs of meetings that never officially happened. Your father has been running a criminal empire for decades. Octavius Ashworth's face was pale, his usually perfect composure cracking. You have no idea what you're dealing with, boy. Even if you could prove any of this, I already have proved it. These copies are being delivered to the FBI, the IRS, and the Washington Post as we speak. Your empire's over, Octavius. This is about revenge, Lysandra said, the pieces clicking into place. You've been using me to get close to my father? No. Kairos turned to her, his amber eyes blazing with sincerity. It started that way. I followed you to the tracks that night because I knew you were his daughter. I thought maybe I could use you to get the evidence I needed. Her voice was barely a whisper, but then I got to know you. The real you. And I fell in love with a woman who was trapped in the same system that destroyed me. Everything I felt for you was real, Lysandra. Everything we shared was real. You lied to me, omitted the truth. There's a difference, is there? She felt tears starting to fall. How do I know any of it was real? How do I know you didn't just seduce me for information? Because, Cairo said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, a man doesn't buy a ring for someone, he's just using. The world stopped. Lysandra stared at the box, her heart hammering in her chest. I bought this with my savings 3 days ago, he continued. I was going to ask you to marry me tonight, not because of your father, not because of revenge, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. This is touching, Octavius said coldly, but you're both fools if you think the FBI is downstairs, Kairos interrupted. They'll be here in about 5 minutes. You have 2 choices, Octavius. You can come quietly, or you can make this messy for everyone. And Lysandra, her father asked, what happens to her when my assets are frozen, when the family name is destroyed? Be free, Cairo said simply. For the first time in her life, she'll be completely free. 6 months later, Lysandra stood in the small gallery in Brooklyn, surrounded by paintings that told the story of her transformation. The opening night crowd was different from the society gatherings she'd once attended. Artists, writers, working, people who understood that beauty could emerge from pain. The Reds sold 15 minutes ago, Cairo said, appearing at her elbow with 2 glasses of wine. And the gallery owner wants to know if you have any more pieces like the Breaking Free series. She looked at the painting he referenced her. Hands breaking free from golden chains, but reimagined with hope instead of despair. I might have a few more ideas. I'm sure you do. He kissed her temple, and she felt that familiar spark of electricity. 6 months, and he still made her heart race. The trial had been a media sensation. Octavius Ashworth, pillar of society. Exposed as the head of a criminal organization that had corrupted politicians, judges, and police for decades, he'd been sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The family fortune had been largely seized by the government. Dimitri had tried to distance himself from the scandal, but his own business dealings had been too closely tied to the Ashworth empire. He'd fled to Switzerland, leaving Celeste to face the consequences of their affair alone. Any regrets? Kairos asked, studying her face. About which part? Losing my family's money? Watching my father go to prison? Having my former life completely destroyed? All of it. Sandra considered the question seriously. The past 6 months had been the hardest of her life. She'd learned to live on a budget, to work for minimum wage at a coffee shop, to find joy. In simple things, she'd also learned what it meant to be truly loved, to be valued for who she was, rather than what she represented. None, she said finally. I wouldn't change any of it. Even the part where I lied to you. Even that. She turned to face him fully. Because if you hadn't, I would have married Dimitri and spent the rest of my life in a prison of my own making. And now I'm free. We're free. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that love is stronger than power. That 2 people who've been broken can build something beautiful together. Cairo smiled, the expression transforming his face. Speaking of building something, together, pulled out the same velvet box he'd shown her 6 months ago. I've been carrying this around for half a year, waiting for the right moment. And this is it? In a crowded gallery with cheap wine and hipsters? This is perfect, because it's real. It's us. No pretense, no expectations, just 2 people who found each other in the darkness and chose to walk toward the light together. Dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the gallery, oblivious to the crowd gathering around them. Lysandra Ashworth, will you marry me? Not because our families arranged it, not because it's expected, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never cry alone again. Through her tears, she could see their story reflected in the paintings around them, the darkness they'd emerged from, the light they'd found in each other, the future they were building stroke by stroke, day by day. Yes, she whispered then. Louder, yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the gallery erupted in applause. But Lysandra barely heard it. She was too busy kissing the man who'd saved her life, had shown her what it meant to be truly free, who'd kept his promise, that she'd never cry alone again. 6 months later, they were married in the same small diner, where they'd shared their first breakfast together. Murphy from the diner walked her down the aisle, and Jericho from the auto shop served as Kairos's best man, instead of a string quartet. They had a blues singer who performed for tips in the subway. Instead of a 5-course meal, they had coffee and pie. It was perfect that night. As they lay in bed in their new apartment, larger now, with a proper studio for both of them, Lysandra traced patterns on Kairos's chest and marveled at how far they'd come. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found me that night?" she asked. "I don't have to wonder," he said, his arms tightening around her. "I know exactly what would have happened. I would have spent the rest of my life walking those tracks, looking for someone else to save, because I couldn't save myself. And now I know that sometimes the person you're meant to save is the one who ends up saving you." Outside their window, a train whistle sounded in the distance, not a sound of endings anymore, but of journeys, of possibilities, of two souls who'd found their way home to each other. Lysandra smiled and closed her eyes, secure in the knowledge that she would never cry alone again. And more than that, she would never be alone again, because she'd found the one person in the world who understood that love wasn't about perfection or possession, but about choosing each other every single day, no matter what storms might come in. The morning, they would paint new canvases, tell new stories, build new dreams. But tonight, they simply held each other and listened to the sounds of the city around them. Their city.
LA.
Their love that had risen from the ashes of their broken past to become something beautiful and true and lasting. The girl who had once stood crying at the tracks was gone, placed by a woman who knew her own strength, her own worth, her own capacity for love. And the man who had once walked those same tracks alone now walked hand in hand with the woman who had become his heart, his home, his reason for believing in tomorrow. They had found each other in the darkness, and together they had chosen the light.